Hey everybody, it's Cheryl with Lead Off-Leash Canine Training and Tioga, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the tools that I use in training, and these are tools that you could use at home to help train your dog. But before I get into the actual tools, I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of pressure and release, or pressure on and pressure off. So if you've ever ridden a horse or watched somebody ride a horse, you'll know that there's reins involved, a bit that goes in the mouth, and also that the rider uses their legs using a squeezing action with their legs to help communicate with the horse. And all of these tools and their legs work on the concept of pressure and release. And it's the same thing with these tools that I use to train dogs. So with pressure and release, what happens is, whether it's a horse rider's legs or some of these tools, you'll apply pressure to the dog and it's slightly uncomfortable, so the dog wants to turn it off or make it go away. And as soon as the dog responds to that pressure and moves in the desired way or place that I want it to go, I immediately reward the dog with releasing the pressure. So that's the idea. It's pretty simple, but you just kind of have to wrap your head around that idea. The pressure goes on, whether it's a horse or a dog with these tools on its neck. It gets a little tighter, it's a bit uncomfortable. The dog says, hey, I don't like this. What do I do to get it to turn off? And as soon as they either go into the command or move the way I want them to do, I remove the pressure and reward them with that release of the pressure. And that is the concept of the release part. So I apply the pressure, they do what I want them to do, and I immediately reward them by releasing the pressure. The idea of the discomfort part of the pressure, it doesn't and shouldn't be painful for the animal. It should never be painful for the dog. It's applied slowly and gradually, and as soon as the dog responds, it's immediately removed. So keep that in mind. If think of it as a comfort zone. If the dog is just stepping a tiny bit out of its own comfort zone with this uncomfortable sensation, then he's learning what it means and his comfort zone is expanding a little bit. And pretty quickly, if you do this consistently and correctly and time it right with your dog will soon understand what's happening. Oh, she's applying this pressure. She's asking me to do this thing. As soon as I do this, it goes away. I get it. And therefore, there's no anxiety left in the scenario. So initially, there might be a slight bit of anxiety, but very quickly, if you do it confidently, comfortably, efficiently, timely, the dog quickly understands what you're trying to communicate through that pressure. And they learn what it means and how to turn it off. So I'm going to get into the tools right now, and I'll show you how they work and how to put them on your dog. All right, so here's some of the tools I use. We've got flat buckle collars up here. We've got slip leads, prong collars, e-collars, harness, treats. These are all the things I use. I'm going to start off with the flat buckle. This is not a training tool. This is something just a dog wears when they're out and about. What I don't like about flat buckle collars when you're working with a dog, you attach it when the dog pulls, and they do pull. A lot of people have, that's why they come see me. All the force is going opposite this leash attachment point. So it's all going right here on the trachea of the dog, and if you hear dogs hacking, it's 99% probability it's from one of these flat collars and the dog pulling against it. So this isn't a training tool. This is just what a dog wears to have its tag and its identification on it. And so I'm going to move into the idea of slip leads now. Come here. Instead of the flat collar where it just puts pressure on one side, a slip will put pressure around the whole neck of the dog. So it's evenly distributed around the dog. You would never leave any of these training tools on, by the way, if you weren't training. You just use them as ways to communicate with your dog when you're working with them. These should fit up high and snug, up just behind the ears and under the chin here. And then you would attach your leash to this bit, this little round metal part of the slip lead. And really effective tool for a dog. A little pressure upward. You don't have to say anything. He's just going to SIT. Pressure's off. Good job. So that's the idea of a slip lead. Or this isn't a slip lead, this is just like a slip collar. You're a good boy. So this is a slip lead. It, just like that little blue collar I was showing you, it opens. It goes around the dog's neck. It has this little leather like toggle here, so you can tighten the slip lead to the circumference you want it so it can't slip down anymore. And we don't want it to slip down because then they're pulling from this strong part, which is the harness pulling part, and that just instills more of a need to pull for a dog. So you just tighten this to where you want it, and again, it's up. So I can go a little tighter on this. Okay, come. It's up behind the neck, a little pressured upwards. Good. And then he sits. So that's a slip lead. Then I have this smaller version of a slip lead for a small dog that's adjustable here, but it's the same concept. When it's around the dog's neck, it puts pressure evenly distributed around the neck of the dog. So that's that collar. And then we get into the prong collars. Come. Good boy. Come. Sit. It's a good dog. It's a good dog. Oh, it's a good dog. There's two different kinds here. I mean, they're the same, but just different attachment methods. This one you have to actually squeeze the prong to get it around the dog and to stay on. So I'm going to squeeze these together, and then it's attached, and then I'm going to swivel it around the neck or roll it around the neck so that the prong parts are underneath and the leash attachment point is at the top. And I want to attach it to this D-ring portion of the prong collar, not this round ring here. This is the point you want to attach it to. And there you have it. So if you're worried about your dog because he's aggressive or reactive and you're worried about this hardware breaking, it's always good to back up this collar. And this is how I do that. I put his other collar back on, his flat collar, which goes underneath or towards the legs of the dog. You want the prong collar up higher on the neck. And then I would attach this round part of the prong collar, not where the leash is attached, but this round bit, through a carabiner to the flat collar. So if anything should happen, if anything here should bust apart, the dog hide buddy will still be attached. Then you would attach the leash to this part of the collar. And these are fantastic training tools. They look the most barbaric, but they are actually the most gentle because dogs don't want to go into this pokey prong. My favorite brand is Herm Sprenger. That's Herm Sprenger. And the ends here are nicely rounded. And you can get cheaper ones that are just more blunt and sharp. So I prefer these, and you can get these on Amazon for about $20. And you can adjust them by taking the links out. If your dog is growing or is too small, you just take the links out to shorten it or lengthen it. So if your hands don't work so well to manipulate these prongs to get it off and on your dog, there's one with a quick release, which I'll show you on my leg here, that I really like. So instead of having to open and close the prongs, I put this bit through this hole, then I grab this little claw thing here and I squeeze it together, open it up, and boom, there it is. And then I would manipulate it so these are lined up, nothing's twisted, and that's where I attach my leash. And if you need to back it up to the flat collar, you attach it to this O-ring there. So that's how this collar works. Tioga, come. Come. Come here. Take this off. So this is how this one goes on the dog, just like I showed you. It goes around and it clips. You want to rotate this so this little swiveling D part is in the direction you're going to have your leash. So this is how, most of the time you want the leash at the top of the dog. If you're teaching a dog to down, then you would want the direction of pull to be downward. I'm going to just barely pull this down and he's going to go down because he knows. I mean, I'm barely pulling that and he went down. So that's the only time I'd have that thing facing downward. Otherwise, I keep it more at the top. And if I'm walking on one side or the other, I might adjust this more to the left if I'm on the left side, or right if I'm on the right side. So prong collars, as barbaric as they look, are quite an amazing tool. They make the dog respond really quickly to a very little bit amount of pressure. And again, you don't leave these tools on unless you're working with your dog. The harness, which I briefly mentioned earlier, is for a sled dog, a dog that wants to pull. I don't prefer these at all unless we're out running and playing and he is pulling a sled, because this works for, come here, come. This, the harness, which I don't need to put it on, you guys know, it works right here around the real strong part of the dog, the chest. So it kind of instilled this need for the dog to pull. And then the other tool that I use is the e-collar, which I will show you how we use that inside the house. It's a little chilly out here. We're going to go back in and I'll show you about that. And then the last bit of tool I use is good boy! Lots of praise and yummy treats. So a combination of this positive stuff with some of this more adversive stuff really can help your dog learn what it needs to know. So let's go back in and show you the e-collar. This is a mini educator by Einstein Technologies, and it's not like the days of yore where you just put on a shock collar on your dog and blasted them for doing something wrong. That is not how I use this tool at all. 95% of what I do is low-level e-collar training. So again, it's the concept of pressure on, pressure off, just like these other tools here. It's an electronic stimulation, much like a TENS unit, which is used to treat and help people that are doing rehabilitation for some injury. And so it can stimulate the muscle, but it's the same thing. It will stimulate my hand here. So how it works, as soon as it's at a 7 right now. This is low level stuff. It's at a 7. It's on my hand here. You can actually see I've been holding while I've been talking to you. So I've been holding it tightly into my palm. I'm going to put it back tightly into my palm. When you see both lights go on, it's stimulating me at a 7. I don't even really feel that. So I'm going to go to a 12. Now I feel it. The red lights are on. I'm still doing it. It'll go off here in a second, the red lights. And I felt it, and it's annoying. Doesn't hurt, it's just kind of annoying. So the dog wants to turn it off. Back to the concept, pressure and release. If I put it on my neck at a 12, we're at a 12, you might see some flinching in my neck or some little tremoring. I don't know if you could see that. That's at a 12. It's not painful, it's just annoying. So the dog wants to learn to turn it off, just like the leash pressure. So this collar, in my personal experience and opinion, is way more gentle than this collar. This collar, when you have the dog on the leash, they will pull against this and be right into their trachea. Keep that in mind when you're choosing tools to train your dog, and educate yourself. Try them, research them, look online, talk to other trainers, talk to other dog owners, see what they're using and what's worked. I don't think there's just a one-way-fits-all sort of training for dogs. Some people are a proponent of just treat-based only, which is great. If that works, that's awesome. Often when you have a puppy or a clean slate dog with no issues, that can be really effective and it works wonders. If you have a dog that already has some negative issues, reactivity to other dogs, aggression towards people or dogs, counter surfing, what have you, these other tools you might find really beneficial. And if you ever do have a great dog that's doing wonderfully, and then you want to go off leash with them, but then they see a deer, you have to be more relevant than that deer. So oftentimes your dog's still going to chase that deer and eventually come back to you, not because you've called it back, but because it's done chasing the deer. So some of these tools, especially this one for that off-leash work, will bring that dog back even when it's chasing that deer, because you still have a way to connect with the dog. Those are the tools that I use. If you have any questions, please send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And thanks for watching, everybody. It's Cheryl with Lead Off-Leash Canine Training. Have a great day.